Want to be reminded of how old or maybe even how young you are? No? Well, too bad, because Goodfellas turns 30 years old this year. 30! 3-0! Martin Scorsese's masterpiece has been watched, rewatched, adored, and admired for 3 decades now. However, as with any movie, there's still plenty of interesting trivia from behind the scenes, obscure facts about the production, and details on screen that you may have completely missed. So join me, Gareth from What Culture, as we take a look at 20 things you didn't know about Goodfellas. Number 20. It could have starred Tom Cruise and Madonna. It's tough to imagine anyone other than Ray Liotta and Lorraine Bracco as Henry and Karen Hill, respectively. But as with any movie, they weren't the only ones in the running for the roles. Tom Cruise was also considered for the part of Henry Hill. While Cruise could have potentially pulled off the role, it's just jarring to think of anyone other than Liotta as the suave mobster. Madonna, on the other hand, was a more questionable casting choice. She hasn't exactly had a great track record for acting roles, but somehow she was in the mix for the emotionally demanding part of Hill's wife. Dodged a bullet there. Number 19, Al Pacino turned down the role of Jimmy. It took until 2019 for Al Pacino to finally star in a Martin Scorsese movie with The Irishman. But it wasn't the first time Pacino was offered a role in one of his films. Pacino was initially offered the role of Jimmy Conway, the Irish-American associate of the Lucchese crime family, who was ultimately, of course, played by Robert De Niro. According to IMDb, Pacino allegedly turned the part down due to fear of being typecast as a stereotypical gangster. Number 18. The funny house scene wasn't actually in the script. Although it's arguably the most well-known scene in the entire film, the funny house scene wasn't actually in the original script. In fact, the moment is based on an experience that actor Joe Pesci had when he was working at a restaurant. As we all know from the film, Hill tells Tommy that he's funny, to which Tommy has a less than enthused reaction. Pesci said something along those lines to a mobster at the restaurant one night, and he got a similarly unenthusiastic response. Once Pesci relayed the anecdote to Martin Scorsese, he decided to include it in the film. However, Scorsese chose not to include the scene in the shooting script so as to elicit a genuinely shocked reaction from the cast. And he definitely achieved that. Number 17, Edward McDonald appeared as himself. Towards the end of the film, Henry and Karen meet with US Attorney Edward McDonald to enroll in the witness protection program, as the couple did in real life. McDonald, however, isn't portrayed by an actor. It's actually the man himself. Apparently, when McDonald's office was being scouted for research on the movie, he volunteered to appear as himself. So, Scorsese actually cast him after successful screen tests took place. The cast and crew put in a lot of effort to make the film as authentic as possible. So why not cast someone who was actually involved in the real-life events? Number 16, Martin Scorsese's parents have cameos. You wouldn't really expect to see a director's parents playing roles in their son's movie, let alone a violent affair like Goodfellas, but that's exactly what Scorsese's parents did. Their roles are, admittedly, brief, but they are significant. Catherine Scorsese plays Tommy's mother in the film, who of course appears after the boys kill Billy Batts, unbeknownst to her, and cooks them dinner. When Scorsese directed his mother in the scene, he didn't tell her that the characters in the movie had just killed someone and had the body hidden in the car, so she was just as naive as her character was. Scorsese's father, Charles, appears as Vinny, the man in prison who made the tomato sauce which Henry felt had too many onions, but was still a very good sauce. Number 15, the painting was painted by Nicholas Pileggi's mother. Continuing with familial relations, this time with Nicholas Pileggi, the author of the book Wise Guy, on which the film's based, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Scorsese. Pileggi's mother sort of has a cameo in this movie. She doesn't physically appear in the movie, but a certain artwork that she painted definitely does. That would be the painting that Tommy's mother shows the boys in the dinner scene. The one with the man and 2 dogs in the boat and each dog's facing different directions. That one. Number 14. 27 actors from the film appeared on The Sopranos. Fans of The Sopranos will recognize a lot of familiar faces in Goodfellas. Lorraine Bracco is the clear standout since she has central roles in both the film as Karen Hill and in the show as Dr. Melfi. Michael Imperioli and Frank Vincent also have memorable roles too. In Goodfellas, Imperioli plays Spider, the boy who Tommy shoots in the foot and later kills. Imperioli then went on to play Christopher Montesanti in The Sopranos for the duration of its run. Frank Vincent plays Billy Batts in Goodfellas, who was viciously beaten to death by Tommy over a comment on Tommy's shoe shining days. Vincent would then then later portray Phil Leotardo on The Sopranos in its 5th and 6th seasons. However, they are far from the only actors in the film to appear on the show. Among others, Vincent Pastore, who played Salvatore Bonpensiero on The Sopranos, has a blink and you'll miss it cameo early on in the film as Man with Coat Rack. Impressive. Number 13, Scorsese played Layla during the shooting of those scenes. The piano-laden second half of Eric Clapton's Layla is used brilliantly in the film as it played over the montage of the Lufthansa crew's bodies being found. However, the song itself wasn't just important to the scenes in the actual movie, but while they were being filmed as well. Such was the significance of the song in tying the scenes together that Scorsese actually played it over the shooting of those scenes. Scorsese did this so as to match certain bars of the piano coda with certain shots of the film, which probably proved beneficial in post-production. So he's one of the greatest directors of all time, and he plays piano. This guy! Number 12, the final shot is an homage to the Great Train Robbery. At the end of the film, after Hill's narration of becoming an average nobody, we see Tommy point a gun at the camera and shoot it 6 times, which Scorsese included as an homage to one of the earliest films in history, The Great Train Robbery. Released in 1903, The Great Train Robbery was only 12 minutes long. It was a milestone in elements of film, such as multiple camera angles, editing, and a flowing narrative. The final shot of that film sees the leader of the bandits fire his pistols 6 times at the camera. To show his appreciation for the film, Scorsese directly paid homage to it here. Number 11, Lorraine Bracco's 2 daughters played the same daughter on screen. We see Henry and Karen's children grow up over the course of the film, and one of them will happen to be played by both of Lorraine Bracco's actual daughters. Her young daughter, Stella Keitel, Bracco's daughter from a relationship with Harvey Keitel, played the 4 or 5-year-old Judy in the earlier parts of the film. After time passes, Bracco's older daughter, Margot Gerard, from Bracco's Marriage to Daniel Gerard, played the 10-year-old Judy. While it's common to see twins play the same role at younger ages, or real-life siblings to play siblings on screen, for 2 separate siblings to play the same character at different ages is pretty unique and quite fascinating, really. Number 10, 10 frames of blood had to be removed to get the R rating. As we all know, the MPAA has strict guidelines over the content in movies that determines the rating it gets. Language and nudity can raise a PG-13 to full-blown R, while the more extreme the violence is, the higher the rating. In the case of Goodfellas, the violence was apparently just a little bit too much for the MPAA standards, according to IMDb. Apparently, 10 frames of blood had to be cut out of the movie in order to get it down to an R rating. Madness. Bloody madness. Number 9, some of the extras were allegedly real mobsters. Next time you watch the movie, you'll want to bear in mind that some of the extras in the film are actually real mobsters. At least that's what Nicholas Pileggi claims. According to Pileggi, actual mobsters were hired as extras to lend authenticity to scenes. Given their occupations, they supposedly gave fake social security numbers to Warner Brothers, so it's unknown how they actually, receive their paychecks. But I don't really feel like asking that question to them. Unless Pileggi's just pulling our legs, this certainly made the production a lot more interesting, not to mention a little bit scary. Number 8, the body count is surprisingly low. Goodfellas is a violent movie, but it has a shockingly low body count of just 10 deaths, and only 5 are actual murders we see take place. For the deaths that we do see happen, that list includes Spider, Billy Bat, Stack Edwards, Maury, and Tommy. The rest of the list includes the 5 bodies that we see following the Lufthansa heist, in the aforementioned Layla sequence. Number 7, the Maury's Wigs commercial was the first scene filmed. Movies typically don't have their scenes shot in order, so the first scene of a movie is rarely, if ever, the first scene that was actually shot. And the first scene filmed for Goodfellas is a pretty surprising one. The low-budget Maury's Wigs infomercial was actually the first scene that was shot for the movie, and interestingly, it wasn't even directed by Scorsese himself. Inspired by a low-budget commercial for a replacement window company, Scorsese decided to contact the company. The person in the ad, Stephen R. Packer, owned the company and created the actual ad himself. So, in order to make it look as authentic as possible, Scorsese hired Packer to write, direct, and edit the commercial for Maury's Wigs. Number 6, Joe Pesci did not expect to win an Oscar. Although it was nominated for a total of 6 Academy Awards, the film criminally only won one of them, that being the Best Supporting Actor award for Joe Pesci. Pesci, however, did not think he was gonna win. So when he was announced as the winner, he was taken entirely by surprise. Since he didn't think he'd win, he had no acceptance speech prepared, so all he managed to utter out was, "It's my privilege, thank you." This is reportedly the 6th shortest acceptance speech in Academy Award history. There you go, Joe. Another thing you didn't know you had. Number 5, The Vindicator. In the final scene of the film, Hill emerges from his witness protection house and picks up a newspaper from the porch, like another average nobody who gets to live the rest of his life like a schnook. On the surface, it doesn't look like there's anything of significance here, but Scorsese carefully and intentionally placed a subtle detail with the choice of newspaper that Hill picks up. The newspaper in question is a copy of The Vindicator, a paper that runs in Youngstown, Ohio, a town that has had a history with the mafia. Scorsese included the paper as an homage to Youngstown, or as it's sometimes called, Mobtown, USA. Number 4, Scorsese did not want Liotta to meet with Hill. For the duration of the film's production, the cast and crew contacted many of the people involved in the true story to make the film feel as authentic as possible. Nicholas Pileggi contacted Henry Hill many times while writing the script. However, there was one person that Scorsese did not want to contact Hill, that being Ray Liotta. Scorsese reportedly didn't want Liotta to meet up with Hill because he had never directed him before, and he was afraid that Hill would have an influence on Liotta's performance, which he understandably wanted to avoid. After Hill died in 2012, Liotta claimed that he did have a few meetings with Hill, but only a few, and he never really got to know him that well. Liotta also revealed that he would listen to taped interviews of Hill and Nicholas Pileggi while driving to and from set, noting that Hill casually discussed murders and other crimes while eating potato chips. Number 3, the iconic Copa tracking shot was not planned. The long tracking shot through the Copacabana nightclub is one of the film's most memorable sequences, but it was never a planned part of the movie. The filmmakers couldn't get permission to enter into the building the short way, so they were forced to go in round the back. This then led to Scorsese deciding to go ahead and film the sequence in one unbroken shot. Scorsese said this scene symbolizes that Henry's entire life was ahead of him, saying that it's his seduction of her, meaning Karen, and it's also the lifestyle seducing him. According to Illeana Douglas, Scorsese was inspired by the long, steady-cam shot in another classic gangster film, Brian De Palma's The Untouchables. The sequence in question was also shot 8 times before they finally got it right. You really don't want to be the guy who sneezed in take number 7, do you? Number 2, the actors didn't quite match their real-life counterparts. When adapting a movie from real-life events, creative liberties are always going to be taken, even if it is mostly historically accurate. Case in point, Ray Liotta was tall, stylish, slender, and handsome, while the real Henry Hill was short, homely, and slovenly. Hill also spoke in a heavy working-class Brooklyn accent, while Liotta had a more suburban voice. Also, Liotta portrayed Hill as a calm and intelligent young man, while the real Hill was an erratic and hopeless drug addict. Joe Pesci's Tommy DeVito was actually based on Tommy DeSimone, and Hill himself said that Pesci's portrayal was 90 to 99% accurate. There was just one teeny-weeny problem. The real Tommy was massively built and had a mustache and long hair. Pretty much the polar opposite of Pesci then. Finally, Robert De Niro's Jimmy Conway looked absolutely nothing like his real-life counterpart Jimmy Burke, who was tall and powerfully built, also had blue eyes and blondish grey hair. Number 1, the preview screenings didn't go so well. Goodfellas is quite rightly one of the most critically acclaimed movies of all time. But no one would have predicted that based on the reactions of the preview screenings. Nicholas Pileggi said that 70 people walked out of a screening in Orange County, California because of how violent the film was. According to an executive producer, one screening was so bad that the team had to hide in a bowling alley from an angry audience. Overall, the film reportedly received the worst preview response in Warner Brothers history, but that did not stop the film from releasing unaltered and leaving behind a legacy as one of the greatest films ever made. Clearly, audiences back then just weren't as accustomed to the extreme violence and profanity we're used to today. Oh, it was a simpler time. And that is our list. Did we miss any other lesser-known facts about this iconic gangster masterpiece? Feel free to remind us of them in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I've been Gareth from WhatCulture.com. Thank you for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.